We don't know. Welcome, good evening to another New Spurs Order podcast under the touchline fracas banner. Here we are. We're just about to commence the second half of the Chelsea game. I've just got it on in the background on mute. I've got just a little can of Monster here just to keep me awake. It should be a can of Stella, though, really. Joined by two others as your host, X-Pac, Tops, Booker T. Booker T, firstly, how you doing?
Yeah, fine, mate. Another one. All good.
I'm glad you got your podcast over shirt on before you came to record, by the way. I do appreciate that. I actually really like it. Such an evil laugh. What are you thinking? What are you cooking over there? Because just before we were recording, you didn't seem too happy.
No, I'm not happy, man. But we'll get into it. But I'm not happy. I've not been happy for a long time. But yeah.
I was trying to get a little bite then, but it's fine. We'll commence and we'll get into it at some point. Jack, how you doing?
I've been better, but you know what? It's what it is. The team are playing like how I'm feeling about the team, so I think it's a collective level of apathy here. But I know you wanted to make top spite, but I'm gonna make top spite. Yeah, called about tops. Booker T, you got to call these guys out. You got to call out. Listen, the NSO had been fighting in itself, so
listen, man,
got to live up to the name.
It's frustrating. I'm frustrated because for a long time I've called out a lot of different things from this team, from this manager. It's just not good enough. People in the group, I don't name them, Tobes, Yao, Dave, they've said that I've been far too expectant. I'm too harsh on some of the personnel. I'm not giving Ange enough of a chance. From about October, I even put a message into the group. How much level of control do we have? How much level of control do we have? And as the season has petered out, it's like all the chickens have come home to roost. Because today, it's been awful. Like, there's no way to describe this performance, but awful. From a structural team level, from a personal level, from a technical level, it's been so bad. It's just like, I just want this season to end. I just want it to end. Put me to bed. I want it to end. I can't keep watching this rubbish every single week.
Very good points, and I was just going over in my head whether that was pause worthy or not. But again, these are prevalent points as well for a North London derby, which obviously we played on the weekend. Just to kick things off, straight away we had a starting lineup of Højbjerg, Bentancur in midfield. That was really, I think, the only contentious positions, apart from maybe left back, with Ange going with Ben Davis instead of Emerson Royale. And really and truly, we actually got on starting that game quite well, I thought, from open play anyway. I feel like we got on the front foot. We were getting good possession in their half. Our counter press was working well. Really and truly, it was almost a little bit expected because obviously we know Arsenal are clear. I wasn't that confident going into this game, but I mean, they've played 4 games since we last played. We can at least bring the energy from open play. And yeah, I'll go on to Jack. And how do you kind of feel like that kind of first half played out, I guess, in and around and before the first goal? I think you might be on mute.
I am on mute. I was at a wedding, so I only got to watch the highlights, but I mean, it did pan out pretty much how I expected it to. You're playing against a side that limit every single team in its chances, and we need a high volume of chances to get a singular goal. So numerically, we were always going to struggle in that game, and I know we got, obviously we'll talk about the goals at the end, but it played exactly how I thought it would be. Or Arsenal did not need to get out of second gear really to get goals to expose our massive flaws in our game. And you're playing against probably the best set piece team as well in the league, which really infuriates me how we just don't address particular issues. And we don't focus on our own weaknesses. It's all about what we can do, and what we can do hasn't been working. So you're just not. It's just a a vicious circle in the end. So it played exactly how I expected it to go, and what angered me was Ange's flippancy. But again, we'll get onto that.
And yeah, Tops, more or less the same question for you, but on a slightly wider scope. Like, how do you feel like the first half was going? I guess some open play, and again, like in and around the first couple of Arsenal goals.
Yeah, I mean, it actually did feel like a positive first 15 minutes. It felt like we made it very difficult for them, and we started on the front foot, and there was lots to feel positive about. I felt like Kulu was taking up areas that he does, but he looked like he was driving at Tomiyasu with some fair amount impetus. It definitely felt like Arsenal had set up in a more defensive sort of way, whereby a lot of our play was central, and they were pretty much happy to bring everyone back as much as they could defensively. But then, unfortunately, if you don't have the ability to turn any of that possession into clear sort of chances, then you always put yourself susceptible to being got at from any kind of set piece or any kind of transition goal, which we seem to have done a number of times this season. And unfortunately, the set piece one got us again, which is kind of how it led to the first goal. And then, yeah, us being poor in our transitional defence and leaving one of the world's best right wingers one-on-one against an aging Ben Davies.
Yes, obviously, again, getting on the front foot. We called it as well last week with the whole Mal Jedinak's going to be having to work overtime in the week to try and prepare for these set pieces. Arsenal, obviously the best in the league at them. Their routines are from a very well-versed specialist, and they've been working all season long, to be fair. They've been working all season long. We should have been more than prepared for Ben White, obviously blocking Vicario. I want to get on to the some of the refereeing decisions now, because there were a lot of them. I don't normally like bringing up refereeing decisions. I hate the kind of perceived influence and the influence they do have on games. But we had two decisions, especially in the first half, go against us. Well, it's actually three. So if we include the Van der Ven offside, but we've got the Kulusevski penalty, and again, just the antics from Ben White on Vicario. Like, are we calling out Michael Oliver for any of those? Because for me, as far as the whole set piece thing has been concerned, you might subjectively call it a foul, but I mean, they've not been giving fouls for it all season long on us or against Arsenal in any of their set piece routines. So I feel like the onus on us is to start protecting Vicario better. And that's my opinion. And I personally thought as well, and I want to try and be objective as well, but I thought the Kulusevski one was probably a bit too soft to be called a penalty. But again, this is my opinion. If he had gone down straight away, then maybe it's something else. But yeah.
Even if it was more of a stonewall penalty, we still have to defend. We still have to protect our players. We still have to play to the whistle and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And it is inexcusable. I think
Yeah,
we've still got other jobs to do instead of dwelling on the decision that wasn't made. Now I do think it was a pen, but I can see why you wouldn't give it either. This is something that Spurs fans cannot dwell on or think about. It's a
Absolutely.
It's a non-issue.
I absolutely agree with Jack. I
And
feel like
Cole Palmer should have just buried us there. But
in the moment, I actually, when I watched it, I didn't think it was. I think it was soft. I didn't think it was enough to be a pen. And having looked at it afterwards, maybe okay, yeah, I could say maybe it could be given if you're lucky. But also, how did we react from a team personnel perspective? Maddison almost went to dive or tried to find a penalty of some sort, and then positionally we weren't in the right areas set up for Arsenal on the break, and it really took one long pass from Havertz into Saka, who pretty much on that right hand side has the ability to take it on his left or right. So we always knew that we were in trouble from that moment.
And then Saka being as clinical as it is. Do you know what? I thought he actually as it's a defensive shape. So I was trying to multitask and watch the game at the same time. I thought we recovered okay, but we seem to be strangely bad at being able to block shots. They either just, quite a lot of them seem to just go through our defenders' legs. It's a bit weird. This one in particular didn't, but I felt like Van der Ven could have got there a little bit quicker. Ben Davis did kind of what he could from the position he started with. Better positioning in the first place could have prevented it, of course, but we're quite bad at that. They go 3-0 up before half time, but again, there was still positives in our open play in the sense that Ange, for me, like finally started to let Kulusevski drift inside with Porro overlapping when we were in the opposition half.
Yeah,
that's I think what the balance should have been from the jump. It's just not the Ange way, I guess, with the wingers. And for me, I was just given the amount of times we managed to turn the ball over in their half and look to get a really good situation, like a 3-on-3, 4-on-4. A lot of people were talking about Maddison, but Son was really, really poor for me. I think he disappointed me much more than Maddison. And purely that's because every time he had the ball, so most of the time we turned over the ball, Son ended up with the loose ball, and each time he could have looked to shift it onto either one of his shooting feet. Obviously he can shoot off both feet, just create an opening to slide someone in, or even just have a shot. Kept on just playing his safe modes, turning back an extra touch, and then pass to the furthest back player in the opposition half to, I guess, retain possession. There were several times where we were making runs forward. One in particular, Kulusevski was running straight at the heart of the defence. Son could have been peeling off the shoulder of one of the centre-backs just to make a slight movement in behind him. He was just standing there behind him, not even on his toes. So I don't really know what's up with him, if he's carrying an injury or he's just losing another yard of pace. It's weird to me. Or he's just going through that standard patch of form which comes with Son in every single season. For me at least, Maddison was trying to get on the ball and trying to be positive on the ball when he did get it, but for me, Son was just way too negative. But was there anyone in particular that disappointed you guys?
Maddison for me was really, really quite poor. At this moment, I can't really work out whether it's a number of things. It's his just drive, his ability at the moment is kind of being minimized because he's having to almost do a number of people's jobs. I feel like we mentioned on the pod last week, I feel like he's playing a little bit like a petulant kid. Nothing's going off for him, and you can see that it's affecting him. I don't think Bentancur was great. I felt like he could have been a little bit more tenacious off the ball, but I think he could have been a bit more decisive on the ball. Werner, as usual, rubbish.
Went off injured after 15 minutes, didn't he?
Yeah, the usual rubbish of him, mate. I mean, generally, you can look at the game and think, as a whole, we didn't do terribly. We just gave it to them, and that's probably the more frustrating thing than anything. It's just giving up these games where you don't have to necessarily play bad, but you've got to I spent the whole pod talking about mitigating Arsenal's weapons. We just gave it up to them instead. Like it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
And last season we were crazy at the fact that the number of goals we concede from individual mistakes was a big issue, and that hasn't been resolved. And I think early part of the season, we were an unknown quantity. The style of play, the movement, the possession-based football, and obviously, the triangles being played and the partnerships that we created in out wide in midfield and whatnot. When it was working, when it was all cohesive, those mistakes are obviously massively masked because teams were also afraid to come at us and try and expose us. Now that blueprint has been found, those mistakes from last season are all there and some. And obviously the high line is just another suicidal aspect of the game that we've added. So we just... Again, it's on Ange. I think you're talking about you're disappointed with Madders and whatnot. I'm really disappointed that the manager hasn't grasped the magnitude of the game that we're playing and the opponents that we're up against. Because it's not the Arsenal of Arsene Wenger's latter years, where yes they'll step up their game at the Emirates or whatnot, but away from home they'll be a bit timid and quite soft. This is a much better Arsenal side than that, and it feels, again, what I mentioned about flippancy, just dismissiveness of the opponent. Like, this is arguably the best team in the league, if City don't win it. And you're still going to just completely ignore the nullification of that, what their strengths are. It just baffles me. And that is my biggest disappointment, because you can do that in other games, marry the philosophy to the players and whatnot. But for this one particular fixture, where the fans are going to be massively, massively against you if you don't make the right decisions and the right calls, it's just not reading the room well, as well. On top of everything, it's not reading the room at all. Yeah, that's all I've got to say. Because obviously I didn't watch the game live, but that really wound me up and rubbed me the wrong way.
So you're alluding to the set pieces and the Saka goal.
Yeah. Those lessons haven't been learned, and obviously Vicario has been a weakness in that regard. So you have to, we've all said it before, you just have to get players around Ben White and whatnot, shield your goalkeeper, and yet to not even do that, to not even pick that up in probably our biggest game this side of the season, it's concerning on top of baffling. I mean, our wingers are just cooking out. Chelsea wingers are just cooking us right now. But yeah, that's why I'm a little bit distracted from that. But it's just poor. It's poor management of the situation and poor coaching as well.
Right. Yeah, because I don't know. I think the poor coaching bit is a bit harsh, because I guess from open play we were still very much, you'd say we edged it. Like, I was very content with the open play performance and certain positions that played. Like, a lot of people were saying we conceded to Arsenal because we started Højbjerg, which, yeah, to be fair to him, obviously Basuma is clear.
Yeah.
But so I was just seeing if we
okay. So one question I want to ask you, and then after the second half, outside of the penalty and the Romero goal, how many times did we test Raya from open play? How many times did we create anything that was feasible enough to call a decent big chance or a decent big attack? I just want to understand, because I know you speak of us having decent amount of possession and play in open play. Yeah, it was toothless. It was ineffective, and it was impotent, which has been a lot of our open play in the last few weeks. It's just like, you can have possession in areas that you want, that give you some sort of territorial advantage on the pitch. But when that ball goes to the final third, first of all, what are you doing with it? What you're doing with it to actively affect the game, in which you can cause a problem for the goalkeeper and the defense. And if you are not going to actively do that, then what are you doing to at least retain possession in the final third and sustain that possession? In my opinion, these are big problems that we have. We don't have the ability to affect teams clinically and like incisively the way we need to, and also in the final third, we don't have players that have the ability to properly keep the ball in the final third, especially when an attack or anything builds up. And I genuinely feel that, like, outside of the 2 goals that were scored in the second half, let's be honest, the crowd got up and there was extra time and we brought players on, but we didn't really push them. What did we really do in that second half?
We put in a load of floated crosses, brother.
Sorry, I just saw Sarr attempt to bicycle kick and the ball hit his standing leg instead.
Absolutely spooky. Absolutely spooky from him.
I think I'm slightly ahead, by the way. So we've just made a triple sub, and Højbjerg, Bentancur, and Madison have all just come on for Charleston, Sarr, and Basuma. I didn't see the third one to go off.
Basuma,
Basuma as well.
Damn. Okay.
I thought Basuma was playing all right.
No.
Yeah,
do you know what though? From what I've seen the last like 5 minutes or so, if we can manage a switch which makes it from the right to the left-hand side of the pitch, I will be quite content. Because I've seen 3 in a row just fall so short, it's been very scary. But yeah, a load of floated crosses. Who's Maroon Duta? Duetta maybe. That is a very disrespectful comment to put in there. Martin Luther King hadn't dreamt yet last time Spurs won the league.
It's disrespectful, but it's also not untrue.
Very I don't think I've heard that one before.
Oh no, I've heard that one. I've heard them all, mate. It does get repeated. They do get
maybe if I look at my phone and all these group chats at the moment, I think I might see it. Ooh.
Højbjerg he's at such a low technical level. God.
Oh, Madison's won a free kick. Okay, cool. All right. Well, we might see something promising in this game, but yeah, we pretty much ended up finishing that game. We did put a bit of pressure on from open play. Didn't really create much. Obviously, won a penalty to then make it 3-2, but huffed and puffed with some more floated crosses, which ended up in nothing. So there were quite a few, which I was thinking to myself right towards the end. I see Raya absolutely bombing off his line to get some of these crosses, like before someone else has actually made contact with the ball. I was thinking, like, what if Son was just to give him the eyes and just try and like ping it near post instead of cross it? I think he might have actually scored, but there was nothing in the way of ingenuity or anything really.
I just saw Højbjerg come on with this. He's already having a disaster class like 2 minutes in.
Listen. Don't do this. Honestly, I can't do this with this guy.
What is happening?
I can't do this with this guy.
Just bear in mind, he has scored at Stamford Bridge before. Who knows? Let's give him a chance. We'll find out if I'm saying that non-ironically or ironically soon. But
we've made lots of leaps, I think, with this group, but there's also still some fundamental issues that need fixing in the squad.
I must say, Madison on a bad day still has that little turn, that little spin that you can do with a tight first touch.
Mm-hmm.
He can do that. You can receive the ball, and then that half turn is rapid, and he's the only player that can do that, and that brings another dimension to the game, despite him being poor in other aspects. So we're in a sticky situation because he does need to be dropped, but we're sacrificing a big element of our game.
No, I think it's fair that he's been dropped. I don't think it's this crazy oh my god, we've dropped our number 10. I mean, he's not been himself for weeks. He's not been the player that we know him to be. So if you're not really performing at the level that we require you to, then you have to come off, And to be honest with you, we've had lots of guys give the look at Johnson. Oh my god. Oh man. Please free me from this ineffective, low quality bondage that we have in our attackers. Please just free it from me. please. I can't keep doing it with these guys.
It's that lack of retention of the ball that all of our forwards have. It just makes hard work of our back line, of our high line in itself, our midfield as a whole. Sorry, is Nico Jackson meant to be 22, 23 years old? Because
Hey, whoa. I'm sure he's the age that he says he is.
he looks.
Perfectly fine.
looks-
That's typical.
I just looked at his face and I realized this guy looks like he should have been retired about 10 years ago.
Ooh. Well. Oh, come on.
on.
That's a nice bit of link up play. Could we?
Somewhat.
Brennan. Oh! I was going to put Emerson around my fantasy team as well. But no, that's a good little back post opening.
Yeah.
Finally, a decent attack on 60.
It does look
minutes.
to me. It does look to
looking at it
me
now.
that Madison has come into the game with some level of.
He does look sharp. He does look
sharp. He looks like he wants to get on the ball and trying to just affect it in the final third, which I think is good.
I think that this is the comment that is his name just F on the chat.
Yeah. What does Ange see in number 5, Mr. X?
As in Højbjerg, right?
Oh yeah.
Højbjerg.
He doesn't want to give him his name.
I'm thinking more about his other comment on the 50 million dropped on Johnson. That's another concerning thing, because if Angie's identifying players like that,
Probably the best attacker outside of Son. Oh, how does Chalobah get that? Means more. Just means more.
Just means
Common.
more.
He's a
it means less. It always means less when it's us, man.
Oh, the switch is on as well, but he's not going to see it.
What did you think of the first half, Owen?
Scoreline wise, shocking. Set piece wise, diabolical. Which is ironic because we could have used someone like that he's actually okay in the air. But again, if I try and remove the emotion out of it, which I feel like I have now, it's been a few days from open play, it was okay. I just needed us to be quicker on the turnover once we won it in their half, because it happened so many times, and that was part of the plan. Like, this is part of the plan which Ange set out, which is actually working, but the application of it from the players in some of those situations where we did turn it over was absolutely poor. And again, that's just why I was mostly disappointed with Son. Someone who is in a position to take the most risks in the team, furthest player forward, can shoot from either foot, can actually just at least look behind him and realize that he can actually turn to the opposition goal without getting snapped. Like, it was just a really negative performance from him, given the fact he was doing all of the kind of pre-match promo and stuff on the kind of club socials before the game. It was, it's poor. Captain as well. Scored his pen, but can't really say much more than that. Like, the first half performance from that game.
Scored 2-0. Oh man!
Was it Palmer?
Palmer hit the crossbar with a free kick, and then the rebound. Jackson met it, and it's just
so I'm on the part where we've just conceded the foul. Kulusevski loves it, doesn't he?
Yeah,
on Kukurea.
He committed another foul. Toby just mentioned it on the chat. He committed another foul the other side of the goal when we were on the attack, unnecessarily. He's committed another one 3 minutes later.
Is Jackson onside as well, I take it?
Yeah. Like, it's
goodness
again.
me.
If I almost feel that if Son and Højbjerg communicate better, one of them can clear that, and in the end, none of them communicate, and none of them do anything in the end to stop that. Oh, that's frustrating.
My free kick hasn't even been taken yet.
Oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah,
we are mid.
Oh wow, that's just gone unchallenged in the air.
Yeah, none of them. Oh, that's really, really poor.
And that 22-year-old scoring, mad.
Mate
Oh
ball
man,
is
this is
mate ball
disappointing.
sucking right
This
now.
is disappointing.
Wait, hang on, who scored that? The goal just happened now. On my
the
screen.
22-year-old.
We let Nico. See,
Look at
there's
this.
ever an
Oh,
embodiment of
I
where
mean,
if there's
I
ever
mean,
an embodiment of where we are
oh,
now,
if you
it's
see the
Nico
chance
Jackson
that
bagging
Johnson has
4 goals.
just missed. Oh my
Nico
God.
Jackson bagged 4 goals against us.
If you see the miss that Johnson has had at the back post,
Gosh.
oh,
Well,
lads, I can't do it
easy.
I can't do it with his attackers. I can't do it anymore. I can't.
I respect you for being on the front line. No, man, that is so typical. Oh gosh, why didn't Højbjerg just clear that? Oh, okay. I'm just gonna move on because Jack's brought up the interesting segue in the sense that this is where we are now. Ange in the pre-match press conference to this game was saying something along the lines of, okay, set pieces and defending them aren't our priority right now. And he's kind of alluded to not everyone, players and staff, being completely on board with his philosophy yet. I even read the quote earlier because I was thinking that whole quote about the staff not being on board was maybe a bit misquoted, but it reads, in my experience, the true belief comes from when you've got the majority of the squad and staff to a point where if I didn't turn up, they would still go about the things in the same way. I don't think we're at the majority yet. Comments on that?
I just feel that and I really do mean this, at the top level of the game, you can't dismiss this. This is an actual. You have paid people. You have paid coaches who have jobs that focuses on these specific aspects of the game. You can't minimize it. I don't think at the top level of the game, at the top peak level of the game, that you can minimize it to being, if it's not that important, then and when I think it's important, then I'll make it an issue. You have a team that is consistently conceding goals from set pieces, and you have a team that is actively scoring goals from set pieces. Surely that should ring some level of alarm bells, that there has to be something made of this. And when people are asking you on this, I think it's a little bit disingenuous when you know that we've conceded the number of goals that we have, to suddenly assume that, you know what, it's not actually that big an issue and people are making it more than it is. I don't know. I feel like whilst he has a very good face in terms of in front of the media, I feel like it's a little bit deflective. I think he's deflecting a little bit. It's clearly an issue. I mean, we can't sit here and say it's not an issue, can we? Can we actively say this? It's clearly an issue.
Size here in the building.
What's up, Si?
Hi, welcome to the front line.
Man, welcome.
What are you saying, my bro?
Let loose.
It needed to happen. I heard the talk about the set pieces. I was like, yeah, time to go. Oh man.
So where do you stand on that and the prioritization of being able to defend them?
I think it's highly disingenuous for a manager to come out and act as if it's not clear as day to see that there's a problem. I have sympathy for new managers when they come in and they want to instill their philosophy. It does take time and it does take some sacrifice, but what we're seeing at the moment is just gross negligence, in my opinion. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to say, if your goalkeeper is being man-marked on his line every game, somebody go over and help him out. I don't think that compromises your overall philosophy. I don't feel like that deters away from your game plan. And
so this isn't the referee's responsibility then, because I forgot to mention earlier, like after it happened, maybe against Everton, I think it was, we wrote a letter to the FA, I think, trying to get them to clarify and explain what the rules are in regards to goalkeepers and corners and stuff like that.
I feel like, again, that's deflection. I think I think ultimately, if you're not going to get the support from the football commission and all of that stuff, then how about you just man up and actually play the game? Like it's pretty simple, right? Like it's a problem. There's ways to solve it on the pitch. Don't leave it up for the referee to save you, because sometimes you're going to get those decisions and sometimes you're not. So take matters into your own hands. Go into the film room and say, this happens every game. Somebody, one of you warriors, who, whether it's a Højbjerg or a Romero, how about you step up and you actually do something warrior like for once, instead of just shouting and screaming and getting yellow cards and shit. Like, play the fucking game.
It's one thing. It's one thing when you don't have if you don't have the physicality or the height to match up. It's another thing when there's clear and obvious lack of intent to address these issues in every single capacity. And it just rubs me the wrong way, because what you talked about deflection earlier in the press conferences, it's the little wisecracks as well, and the sort of charmingness to the British media that winds the hell out of me up, because again, that is that is a form of distracting from the actual issues at hand. And we're seeing through that now for sure. I don't know if other fans are, but I'm definitely starting to see through it all.
Anyone, Angel, just yet? Because I'm seeing a lot of that in the chat there.
No. I'm very much in the mindset that this is always going to be a transition sort of period for us. I feel like we'll have to take anything that happens this season with a pinch of salt. We've made, like I said, I think we've made huge leaps, but there are still some general fundamental issues that we need to look at, be it structural, be it personnel. And honestly, I feel it will be different if I look at the team in a year and I see a performance like this. It will say a lot to me, because it's one thing to be stubborn, to be set in your ways, to want to play a certain way, to want to set up your team in a certain way. It's naive to see lots of things happening over and over and over and not doing anything about it. And I think in the group as well, Jack said something. I think something along the lines of how you end the season also gives me an indication as to where you're at, because I feel you've had a season to really embed your ideas, your philosophy, your style. And yeah, per se, in many respects, it's been positive because we're way higher than we thought we would. But also, it kind of leaves you with a bit of taste in your mouth if you end the season on a low, and doesn't really give you a huge amount of confidence going into the next season, however many months it may be away, because the last moment that you feel that you have of the team in a competitive nature is, at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Having spoken to like a couple of you guys as well, it's very easy to see that we could lose 4 games in a row. And to me, that is worrying. I don't know how anyone else can look at that as not worrying.
But also, if it was the other way around, if we started off the way we are, not addressing these set piece issues, continuing with this higher line against every single opponent and not adapting, and then say second half of the season our philosophy builds and we play more like how we did in the first half, in terms of half of the season, in terms of our attacking play, our territorial dominance, whilst slightly tweaking and addressing those issues, then we'll be in a completely different boat. We'll be talking as if, we'll be there next season. But it's gone the other way around. And I think the other thing is Ange's press conferences are becoming more and more of an emotional response. And that concerns me as well, because every time a manager is in that situation, we know how it goes, especially after last season. So the fact that his responses are becoming more and more emotional, can say slightly irate, that doesn't bode well for me. And then obviously the reports of players and even coaching staff bizarrely not buying into what he does. The players look like they're playing that, like that report, is true. That's what I'm seeing right now. This Chelsea game, it looks like that there's legs in that story. So, yeah, it's concerning.
Yeah. Sips, mate, tea. So, I mean, there's been a lot of kind of tweets which have been kind of dug up from his first year at Celtic, and a lot of them are just saying the same thing, how he's been negligent with how teams counter them and score set pieces against them. And because he says mate a lot in press conferences, people let him get away with it. But I've also seen this kind of idealistic arrogance in other managers before, especially from Klopp. He was swearing blind that Dejan Lovren wasn't costing him points on almost a weekly basis, but everyone and every neutral fan, every Liverpool fan had eyes. They addressed the issue, and lo and behold, they went on to do some pretty good work.
It took
What's
2
the
years
kind
to
of
address
faith?
those issues.
Yes. I think that defeat at Wembley did a lot as well. I believe that Ange is still kind of looking for us to almost be the team that takes more or less what Liverpool's position has been this year. Seems like a tall order, but can we do it, and what can we do to do it?
I think number one, I want to say that like the petulance I can understand to some extent, just because, as I said, it takes some time to embed the benchmarks of your philosophy. But I don't feel like there's just one problem that we're solving for, and that to me is the most worrying thing. I think maintaining a high line is not an issue for me, because that's obviously going to be fundamental to the way that the system works from the ground up. But it's the lack of continuity and protection that our midfield offers. It's the rigidity of the forward three in comparison to, say, the inverted wing backs. It's the fact that we see that like players like Romero feel like the solution to a lot of our problems is to play as a free roaming centre back, as opposed to just getting your core duties down pat and actually stopping transition opportunities over the course of a season. Like, these are the things that worry me more so. And for anyone that previously screamed from the hills that we needed to go with an attack first approach, this is the type of bullshit that you end up seeing as a result of that. Like, the game is played from the back forward. Like that's the way that team's set up their attacks. So why wouldn't you prioritize having stability there instead of compromising it for chopping and changing and all of this like odd movement? There's no rehearsed patterns of play or anything. So I am going to be patient, and I'm not going to be Ange out for any time soon. But I definitely want to see us actually start to be a bit more disciplined from top to bottom on the pitch. I want to see us actually like show that we're putting in hard yards in training, as opposed to it just being idea ball or all sort of slideshows and fucking tactical analysis. Like, I don't want that from this football club. I want good coaching, and I want actual regimented structure, so that we can actually enhance our capabilities of adding some flair to something that we know when we're in the trenches can actually work. And we're not seeing that as of yet. So pre-season is going to determine a lot going into next season.
Gosh, we've just conceded another free kick on the edge of our own box by the looks of it. With all that said, just closing out the last 10 minutes or so of this game against Chelsea. We've got Brian Hill and the Celso on the pitch. Is there anything we can even do at this point? I think we've just gone for like a 3 at the back as well, maybe.
Come on, man.
Is there anything we can do to get back into this game? I say that I should have waited for him to take this free kick first before asking that.
What are you expecting, man? It's just. I mean, just to be beaten by this Chelsea team is just. I can't
Twice.
I can't put into words how annoyed I am right now.
Yeah, no wins this year against Arsenal or Chelsea.
All else.
This season.
Man.
No, 3. No, sorry, not 4 else. No, my man.
I mean, the only way we actually rescue anything from this game is if somehow Chelsea end up forfeiting. How many red cards are they going to get in order for us to get the forfeit win?
I need Romero to cuss 4 people's mums, yeah, and then try and wind them up.
Man,
somehow.
never did I think. Never did I think.
I'm not even
I'd
sure he
be
knows
seeing,
how many words to cuss someone's mum out of.
never did I think I'd be seeing Brian Hill on the pitch, man, in 2023-2024 season. Man.
I didn't think we'd be on the victim side of Mr. Brightside either, but man, here we go.
But the other concern I was saying was Ange's talent ID, who he wants to bring, who the hierarchy will allow him to bring, how much power he'll have over that. Again, how much optimism can we have with that? You know, that's a question. That's a genuine question, by the way. It's not rhetorical.
The thing is, though, you see with that is that sometimes you can kind of see like why a manager wants a certain player. He may see a specific characteristic or specific technical ability that they have that he thinks would improve. But the one thing that does concern me a little bit is I'm looking at the kind of way that we play and the style in which we play. And the players that we are being linked with, they're not of the. I don't think they're at the technical level that he seems to need, and it does a little bit concern me. You know, when I watched a lot of his teams, especially with Celtic, I know it's difficult to judge because the level is higher. But one thing that he always had was, it felt like to me, incisive, really strong technical wingers who were almost played like inside forwards the whole time. Very good at taking on players, very, very good at dribbling and creating their own opportunities. But when I look at, you know, him going for people like Werner, him going for people like Johnson, these are not the profiles that I think will thrive in his style. I don't think these kind of players that are really going to take you to the next level, how can you say, needle move. And it just feels a little bit, I'm not sure what he is going to do in the summer to really make this tick for us, you know, whether it's structurally how we look defensively, but massively, I think, how we look from an attacking perspective in terms of retaining and keeping possession and sustaining possession in the final third, but also us not being as impotent as we've been, us not being as dull and not as effective as we should be, I think, in the final third. I'm a little bit worried, and I'm just hoping that these worries are kind of tempered when we do get to the summer.
I'll be totally honest. I'm not necessarily too worried about our recruitment, just on the basis that, for all intents and purposes, Vicario, Udogie, Van de Ven, Madison all came in this season. SARS sort of had his first like breakout season in terms of being fully integrated into the squad, and all of these players are by all intents and purposes the best performers over the course of the season. The only long-standing players that you would really give that nod to is maybe Son through spurts of the season, and Romero, who has seemingly lost part of his Bozo gene. Have we just conceded again?
No, just clear chance. Clear chance.
I've turned a blind eye to the garbage. I don't know where Jack is.
Jamie,
He's got the right ideas.
I'm watching. The stream sort of stopped, and I wrongly refreshed.
I'm surprised you get any reception in the little bunker.
Mate, I feel like I'm in a bunker right now. The way what I'm watching.
Bentancur with a couple of cutback opportunities this last couple of minutes. It's interesting, like, since our players have started to grow mullets, it's not been going as well.
No, it's true.
Madison, Bentancur, has been weighing them down.
We're defending like we're in the 80s as well. Like, yeah. Well, no, what I will say is, right, I think players out wide having a level of ball retention is massively important in terms of creating partnerships with fullbacks, especially inverted fullbacks as well. And again, this is what worries me about profiles, is when you think of the wide players or the forward players like Werner, like Brennan, who are signed under this managerial regime, it baffles me, because you'd want someone that can retain the ball for those extra few seconds to get the extra body up the pitch, make the extra run, someone that can link up the play a little bit better rather than someone that can get on the end of things. Werner can receive the ball, but obviously he is in essence a one-trick pony in that he will go out wide, take on his man, and put in a cross. I haven't seen him do much else with that. He can run in behind as well, but what good is that when you're missing one-on-ones right, left, and centre? So that is what worries me about the profile of signings, mainly the forwards. So that has to massively improve.
I think I'm with you to an extent, but I also think that's a coaching thing. Neither Brennan or Werner by rights should be first choice in this team anyway. And they're both new additions, so there is going to be time for them to develop into their roles. But one of the more worrying components is the fact that when you say holding the ball for long enough for players to make it up the pitch, I think too many of our players who should be making late runs and supplementary runs are making their runs too early. I feel like between Porro and Udogie, we see Udogie do it to devastating effect in terms of arriving late, making an underlapping run. But I feel like Porro's starting position is either far too high or far too low. That's why he tends to get caught in transition. And then both of our midfielders, whether we're going to call them eights or one of the eights and the 10 or whatever number we want to assign to them, I feel like they're further ahead on the pitch than any of the wide men, and sometimes Son when he plays centrally. And it's a bit confusing because we're not filling these channels well. We're not creating verticality properly. We put the ball out wide and then the ball ends up back with our centre backs in our own half, and it's just like we're not actually utilizing these components in the positioning of a lot of these systemic sort of hallmarks. We're not actually utilizing them in ways that make sense. We're just almost like pretending as if we're doing something forward thinking, when in fact we're just playing a really dull, bland, predictable style of football with very little structure. Yeah. Weird.
Could you say that, with players making early runs too early or dashing too far ahead, could you say that's because we know certain players can't hold that ball long, so they have to make that run early because they know they're going to either give it away or rush it in terms of rushing the pass, rushing that ball in the final third. They feel like the need to have to get there quicker because they know the players cannot retain the ball as well.
I think that would be one way of looking at it, but I just think it's ill discipline, if I'm totally honest, because Porro does it way too frequently, and it's always bothered me that him and Kulusevski have never been able to strike up any meaningful partnership. We see that Sarr makes very, very well-timed runs. He might be the only one. We know that Udogie can make well-timed runs, but again, we lose the ball frequently in the middle of the pitch, more so than the wide areas of the pitch. So I don't know if I totally agree with it just being on the wide forwards.
Did you see that? You see that Brian Hill cross? Sorry.
Yeah. I wasn't sure about it being a cross, but I was just to kind of sign out from this podcast now. We've just obviously had full time at Stamford Bridge for it 2-0. And at the start of the season, loads of people have actually came out and said, "Oh, Porro's a wing back. He can't play right back. Just far too open." Starting off the season on fire, but can we say now, as we've got a sample size over a whole season, like, is that something we're gonna need to upgrade on in the summer? Because it's looking quite spooky.
I'm gonna need Tobes and brother Conan to come back and justify why Pedro Perro, as I like to call him, Pedro Perro, because he walks around like a stray dog. Like I really need the flashlights to be on that man.
Oh man,
it's not very defensively. Still,
he hasn't got a defensive bone in his body clearly, and those discipline issues were there from last season. But
The thing is,
I
he looks
thought-
like he's been given like Trent Alexander-Arnold allowances, but without the trade-off of having
Yeah.
the attacking output
Yeah.
that someone like a Trent would bring. Even though he did start off the season more or less, he finished last season with a really good kind of attacking threat to him. Started off the season the same way, and just over the course of the rest of the season, it looks to have just completely died. Do you know who he reminds me of as well? Regulon.
Yeah.
oops, sorry.
That's someone
this
on a
That was
On a
yeah.
map.
He
Call me.
he
Probably screwing about the game, to be honest. So we doing the pod after the pod with my father. So
I'm so disappointed. Oh, I can't believe this performance today. This is awful. This was awful. Oh
You know
my
how
God.
like bald managers are getting a bad rep in the Prem right now, yeah.
I'd be careful. Yeah.
Ange's balding, so is he on his way out? Is he on his way to being the Eric Ten Hag kind of
I don't know.
guy?
I think Ange has a pretty decent hairline for a 60-year-old. To be fair, I would have taken that half my.
Nah, I saw some shit there, man.
Yeah, but he's
Jack,
60.
Jack isn't fighting the toupee allegations anyway. So fuck out.
Yeah.
Hey man,
Oh man.
Jack
on
calling me Jack
Anfield.
Tonio Conte or something, bro.
Oh man.
I love that. All right, gents. Well, again, thank you for joining me on the front line. Obviously, thank you for the fair few of you who are currently on the stream, putting in comments and questions. Yeah, the Chelsea youngsters came out on top. It means more. Yeah, onto Anfield. Again, check out the streams, which are going to be coming out. The audio form of this out every Saturday morning. Socials. Instagram, TikTok, X, Twitter, at New Spurs Order. Find us there. And yeah, for now, peace out, man.
Yeah.